I normally like to start right on time. I'm a couple minutes late. I've been chastised for being late before, so I know some people will be coming in. I'll tell you where everything is at, and then we can talk about the projects that we're going to be going over today. I'm Joe Capper, the town engineer, and I basically have a couple of my engineers from my office, basically Craig here, standing up front here, Craig Seeger, and then Terry Andre. She's here also. So we're talking about two different studies, but they're going to be going on simultaneously. They are related. Terry will be handling the stormwater management study, and Craig will be handling the vulnerability study. So just want to make sure you know who they are. The idea was this is a kickoff meeting, okay? It's really just to talk about what we're going to be doing. We haven't done any of the work yet, what we're going to be doing, and I won't say we haven't been doing work. We've been doing work, but the fact of the matter is this is really just to kick off the studies that are due in about 6 months, okay? So it's a pretty aggressive schedule for what we're trying to talk about, but most of you know the town has already been aggressively pursuing raising South Sewalls Point Road and planning for raising North Sewalls Point Road and for fixing stormwater problems throughout the community. At the same time, we're trying to finish the septic to sewer program, at least getting sewers available for people. And so there's a lot of stuff going on, and it may sound like we're going backwards, but we've been planning all these things, and then the state said, okay, well, now you need to be doing this under programs. And the benefit to all of that for all of us is we get grant dollars. If we don't show that we have a planning document in place, you know, sometimes we don't get the grant dollars. Everything we do in the town is, and all the improvements that we've been talking about for the last 5 years are grant intensive, okay? And we like to think we're going to get 100% from these grant agencies, with the federal government, the state government, water management district, the DEPs. Well, that doesn't always happen. And all those grants usually have a match requirement. So that match requirement typically comes from the town, but we've been pretty good about getting grants where we match federal with state funding, okay? So the point I'm trying to make is the ultimate, you know, first of all, we want to plan all these things, and we want to hear from you, the folk, you know, basically the residents and the commercial businesses. We want to hear from everybody, get a plan together in place, and then basically we will pursue getting the improvements designed and money put forth for them, okay? So that's what we're talking about today, and I'll go through them in a minute. First of all, I think John Tompeck, our mayor, is here today. Dave's over here, one of our commissioners. Let's see, is there any other commissioners here? Bob, most of you may not know Bob Daniels. He is our town manager, and he's been with us for about a year now, and he's doing a great job for us. And so we're just going to talk, and maybe the way I should present this is I'll go through some slides, and I know that'll probably bore the tears out of most of you, but the fact I'll do some slides, ask some questions, and then I'll go through some more slides, ask some questions, and then we'll do just general questions, and then the three of us will stand at the boards and talk, and if you feel more comfortable talking to us one-on-one, come on up and we'll talk that way. So we'll preserve the last half hour at least for just one-on-one questions. So we're starting at 9, so let's say this presentation shouldn't last more than until 9:30. So probably from 10 to between 10 and between 9:30 and probably 10:30, we'll talk general questions, and then we can do one-on-one after that. So that's the game plan. If everybody gets where they're real quiet, we'll just go to questions on the side. So again, this is an interactive program. A couple things. I'm going to use this to also talk about the various projects we have going. So, because I know we want to put a little better program out there of communications with the residents, because in the meetings that we have twice a month, we talk about them. Sometimes they don't get to everybody out there. And so I'm really happy that we've had the show of interest that we have today here, so that everybody can at least know what's going on. So I'm going to start off with a couple things so everybody knows what we have on as far as exhibits. So the PowerPoint's going to be up here on the left.
Just 1 second before you go?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to let everybody know the PowerPoints and this presentation today is going to be on our website. So Tom's here. It's not being recorded live, but it's going to be recorded so we can put it on our YouTube channel. So, you know, if you don't catch a note or you got to go back, or, you know, obviously you can ask a question, but we want to make sure that as many people as we can touch as being our residents, that we can get this information out and work together to make sure that we're still going to be here in 40 years as a town. You know, I might not be here in 40 years. I doubt if I will. I'll be setting records if I do. But I just want to make sure that, you know, this town is still going to be here, because this is our blood, sweat, and tears. This is where we live for. We love this community, and we want to pass that on, and to either our relatives or somebody else's relatives or somebody that's moving down here from New York or wherever. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to be. So that's why we're going through all this, is just to what we can do in the future. So I know we have immediate problems that we're working on, but, you know, what are we going to be able to do in the future to make us more resilient? So,
Thank you. Good intro. Okay, so I'm going to just tell you about some items. So the two boards on the right here, they're really just to show your lot, and later on, if you could come up so we know who's here. We certainly want everybody to sign in, and if they have an email address, we tend to have most of the email addresses for people in town, but just in case, it would be nice to have it here. We have set up an email that you can respond with questions and provide us data as throughout these studies. So I want you to know that's at the back side of what is on the back table. There is basically a sheet. I always like to leave people with a sheet that, first of all, is really just talks about the programs and the projects. And again, we'll hear about stormwater master plan, update, and a vulnerability assessment. And it basically talks about today's kickoff meeting, and then it tells you where you can email us with information. So that's on the front cover. And basically then there are going to be public meetings after this, so don't feel bad if you haven't thought about some of these things today. This is, again, just to kick off, to introduce you to the programs. There'll be 3 other meetings after this, so there's more time that's going to be spent on this. The back side of it talks about, you know, it's stormwater master plan, and these items are on the PowerPoint presentation. One of them, the first one, stormwater master plan, and again, the second side is vulnerability assessment. So pretty much you can take notes and so forth on here, but it's really just if you want to go grab them. I don't know, Terry, maybe we should make sure everybody has one, because not everybody may have known that they're up there. They're on the back table. So while you're getting that, these 2 exhibits here are the current, basically the floodplain maps that FEMA utilizes in town. So when you go to the building official, Jack's here. I don't know if Jack's here out here now, but Jack, he basically looks at your home site, if you're remodeling or whatever, and looks and see where you are in the floodplain. So that's what those maps reflect. Just in case you didn't know, those are online, but the fact of the matter is that those are floodplain maps, and they're relative to what we're going to be talking today. Again, we'll be doing a PowerPoint presentation. I do have some project plans up here that are projects that are going on now in town. So just in case some of you probably wonder, you may see surveyors out there and they put stakes in the ground, and you may say, what do those stakes represent? They're getting data so that we can design things. So there are several projects under design. On the back wall, there is a board back there. That board reflects the sanitary sewer program. And what's in purple on that board reflects what we have already designed for sewer lines, okay? And those are typically low-pressure force mains that are going to be put under the road, and they also reflect the location of those low-pressure force mains. What will happen is, basically, the town has a grant to put the lines in the road, okay? And what's in purple is what's starting construction the middle of December. Probably will not be done until somewhere in the April, May period of time. And what we have as a contractor, Jamie Underground, is directional drilling lines underneath the roads, and those lines will be sanitary sewer lines. In that area, the big area that's in the middle reflects what is our South Sewalls Point Road Phase 3 area. That's a stormwater project that we're working on. and we bid it, prices came in high, the town has gone after more money, and we are now working on getting money, and at the same time, we hope to be bidding that and having that under construction the beginning of January of this coming year, okay? So that's the Phase 3 project that we've been talking about for several years now. That will be going to construction. That basically lies between Ridgeland subdivision and the Rio Vista subdivision. That's the area where we, not that we don't have flooding throughout the whole town, but that's the one we've seen to close the road the most areas. As most of you know, the areas to the south of that are in gray, those will be low-pressure force mains, and those are going to be designed next. We just received approval to start the design in those areas. So what you're going to see is people surveying in those areas. So if you're living in those areas, you're going to see survey stakes out there. That's to get us data so we can design those lines. So that's the septic to sewer program. If most of you don't know, the town has sewers in North Sewalls Point available for everybody. A lot of people in North Sewalls Point are hooked up to sewers. The commercial areas, we just finished this week connecting Town Hall and these commercial properties here. So there's sewers from here to the north in place, and not everybody's hooked up because they have to decide once they want to hook up. Some people have septic tanks and drain fields that are working well, and they're allowed to stay on them, okay? But essentially, from here north has sewers available. From here south, there's 706 lots down here that we are planning to get sewers available. And again, at this moment, it is voluntary to a point. If once we get those lines in place and your septic tank drain field fails, then you will be required to hook up, okay? So I call it voluntary, but that people kind of correct me, it's not really voluntary. You'll be mandatory hooking up once we put a line in front of your house. So I'm using a little bit of this to kind of give you an update on projects. So we talked a little about septic to sewer. We've completed stormwater improvements down in the area of between High Point and Sewalls Meadows on South Sewalls Point Road, as well as went up into Mandalay and Margarita areas. Those improvements are in place. We've had a lot of lessons learned on that project. That purpose of that project was to control sea level rise, which is a resiliency item that we are planning for throughout all of the town. It also affected improving drainage problems that we had down there. And so for the most part, it's worked very well, okay? Basically, we've been able to control sea level rise, king tides, but anyways, and the road's been raised and so forth. So that is similar to what we will be doing in Phase 3, which is in the middle area that I mentioned earlier. And then we are going to be designing Phase 2, which is between Sewalls Meadows and Rio Vista subdivision. So that's going to be under design as we move forward and we hope to put that out on the street for construction next April. Okay, those are all things that are happening in South Sewalls Point. Then we will go from Phase 3 to Town Hall area, which was called Phase 4. I don't want to make sure I mention that, or not forget North Sewalls Point. Stormwater improvements on North Sewalls Point Road. Remember, that is a county road. That is a county road, and we are working with them we already have grant money to plan it, but we are trying to get Martin County's attention about raising that road also. So essentially, the whole town will be pretty much working on resiliency items. So now, I'm going to go to what's in the PowerPoint, and which we're really here for. I just want to give you an update on construction projects. So, and the reason I brought that to your attention is there's a lot of money being spent in town for infrastructure, and we want to make sure we capture the concerns of everybody. The most important part of these studies is to get the public's input. So I really hope you stay involved with this. Tell us the problems, tell us what we need to fix. Today we're not going to fix anything. We want to hear from you, okay? And so there's a lot of time to talk about this in the next 6 months, but again, we need to make sure we know what your concerns are. I always like to say this has been talked about at the commission meetings. The commissioners are endorsing this, and they're endorsing this because this is the complaints they receive from the residents. So I work for 50 politicians on the Treasure Coast, and as much as people can complain about one politician or another, the fact of the matter is they are listening to your concerns. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of these concerns and improvements take a lot of money. We started at South Sewalls Point Phase 1 in improvements that were under $10 million. Now they're above $10 million to do 2,000 feet of roadway and raising it up and to resolve these things. It takes a lot of work, and again, it is grant intensive. We have to get federal grants, we have to get state grants, and they don't like to get us money to just sit on it. They want us to be working on it. But the fact of the matter is, we have to finish one project before we can get to the next project. There is something called cash flow in town that we have to be concerned about. Everybody in this room has the same problems I know at home. So anyways, just want to make sure you knew what we're doing. So a couple other items that you should be aware of. There is a strategic plan that talks about other types of improvements in town. Highly recommend that you look online to see what those improvements are. They talk about everything from the next 5 years to the next 10 years to the next 20 years, and basically from 16 to, they're broken down into improvement periods of the next 10 years, and what we're talking about today is currently to the next 10 years, and then they go into some projects in the next after 10 years, and then they go from 11 to 15 years and 15 to 20 years. So just wanting you to know, there's doing a lot of planning at the same time, strategic planning, and they're not just stormwater improvements. They're basically, besides sanitary and stormwater, there's other pathways, traffic calming, a lot of other things. I highly recommend that you at least get the strategic plan and of course, comment on them and let us know what's going on, or that you would like to see also here. We are going to, I know I'm skipping around a little bit on things that actually isn't really relative to why we're here, but I wanted to make sure you know all the things that are going on. Okay, so we are doing what is called a we are doing two things today. We're going to talk about the Stormwater Master Plan upgrade and the Vulnerability Assessment Program, okay? I do want you to know Martin County has a program called Resilient Martin. They're doing the same thing. So, you know, resiliency and vulnerability talks about infrastructure improvements to be prepared for the severe rainfall events we've been getting, to be prepared for sea level rise. So the idea is they are planning the county facilities around us, okay? And let's be honest about it. Everybody in this community uses those facilities. And those facilities could be the hospital, they could be the parks, they could be the beaches. They're planning those items, okay? We can show them in our plan, but they're the ones planning those. So it doesn't bother us that you ask us to make sure they're on a plan, meaning the county one, but you probably want to pay attention to Resilient Martin County for some of those items, because we are going to probably concentrate on the town of Sewalls Point items, okay? Everything from north and south. It's not just one side or another. It's not residential, just it's commercial. It's both of us, okay? It's all of us. So in general, that's what we're here to talk about, is the town items, but certainly you're welcome to mention the other ones so that we make sure that they're in the county plan. And one of the things that we are trying to accomplish today is to make sure we understand what you think are critical facilities for living in the town of Sewalls Point. And I'll give you just a real quick, critical facilities is this town hall. Critical facilities are those roads out there. Critical facilities is, want to make sure the sewer system works when we're done and that you have clean water. Those are critical facilities. There's going to be seawalls out there that are going to be affected by sea level rise. Those are critical facilities. So there's, in the hospital's a critical facility, the fire station's a critical facility. Those are in the county and the city. So point is, those are the kind of things we're looking at. And we want to make sure we know that we have every one of the critical facilities in the study, okay? So that's one of the main objectives of today's meeting. So I'll go to the second slide. So And again, sometimes they'll have to be acquired or basically tore out and replaced, and then there'll be relocations. Those are things that could happen in this area, but the point I'm trying to show you here is this is a low-lying area. And what we have to do in resiliency is we have to figure out how we're going to solve these problems over time. So you're going to see this resiliency study is going to talk about what happens in the next 20 years, from 2020 to 2040, and then it goes from 2040 to 2070, and then it goes to 2100, okay? And our requirement is to address 2040, where things are going to be in 2040 and where things are going to be in 2070. That's the study, okay? But there are other milestones that we could look at if you so desire. But the point is that's what's happening, I'll just say, east of South and North Sewalls Point Road, okay? Between South and North Sewalls Point and here, which is about, the higher point is quite frankly right about in here, River Road. You know we have homes that are here that climb up the hill, okay? Going from east to west. And essentially what we want to do in those areas is we want to hold some stormwater back so that we basically don't flood these areas down here. And so we're going to see improvements not only in the area of where the flooding happens, but the area upstream, so we can hold water. And there's a lot of benefits of that. One of them being is we have an aquifer, right? We want to replenish that. We want to capture that water here. Second thing, as much as I hate to say it, is we have permit requirements that we can't just discharge this water into the lagoon. It's not allowed, not permitted. So all these improvements we're talking about have to be permitted. And so in a minute I'm going to go through, let's go to the next slide. I'll go through this and then I'll tell you the history, a little bit of stormwater at Sewalls Point, okay? Most of you probably know. So they want to make sure your house don't flood and that you can get to your house, okay? That's what FEMA does. What we find is with DEP, or Department of Environmental Protection, they tend to stress improvements that address water quality and treatment and making sure we clean up our water before it gets to the river, okay? So those are the two parts of stormwater management, okay? Between flood control and basically water quality treatment, nutrient reduction. And there's different levels of treatment and nutrient removal. In this basin here, nitrogen and phosphorus are what we're trying to remove before we send it to the lagoon, okay? Anyways, the last time we technically updated the master plan was 1993, okay? And we did that with the Water Management District. They gave us a grant to do this, and we spent a year educating the folks on it. But before that time, it was like, let's get the water into the river as fast as we can, not holding it back, not providing treatment. And so since that time, we've been doing those improvements. And at that time, we had about 36 improvements in town. Most of those were built. Actually, one of them just recently was built, the South Sewalls Point Road, phase 1. That was in that study to be done. That's how long it took before we could find the money and get everything together to do that. I think most of you have probably seen this. You know that water goes into sidewalks, goes into the driveway, and you can basically pick it up in catch basins, put it in the stormwater management system. In our case, we do not have a lot of land for stormwater treatment, retention areas, so we basically put things in exfiltration pipes, which are perforated pipes underground. And basically, sometimes we have SDAs, which are retention areas, but everything in stormwater management, as far as what you have to think about, is we have basically conveyance of water from the house down the roads to a treatment area, which may be exfiltration or stormwater treatment area, and so that's basically treatment and storage. And then the last thing is discharge to an outfall. So those outfalls that are out there, and we've been looking for some in phase 3, which we finally have obtained those by buying a lot on 78 South Sewalls Point Road. But essentially, we have to have discharge because we cannot store all the water we need to that's falling from the rainfall that's falling here. So we store it, treat it to a certain extent, and then we have to discharge it. So that's the process of stormwater management. Now resiliency, which is the vulnerability assessment, is again, we're following the Florida program, resilient program, and basically the idea is to protect our critical assets from sea level rise and flooding and so forth in major storm events. Did I touch something?
I think I hit it, sorry. trying to get the keyboard working right.
So before the storm, during the storm, after the storm, and basically, obviously, we want to bounce back. So one thing I like to point out here is, and this came up in phase 1 project, the idea is we're going to store water on roads, and not, we basically want the road passable, so we're not storing it on roads, we're storing it underneath the roads. We also store water on basically people's land that they own. They will store some water, okay, which falls on your property. We have to be conscious of making sure public water doesn't fall on your property, okay? But private water that falls on your land, that storm water, basically, you're going to be asked to store some of it. The new codes are going to be requiring the builders to do that. So you're going to see more of that, more codes and more stringent codes on that issue. So I just want everybody to know. It's not so much that when it rains, no water comes to your property. That's not going to happen. Water's going to come to your property. It's how fast we recover from that water. So that's why that last thing about bouncing back is important. So we've had some pretty good success on that. I know people don't like the fact that water comes on the property, okay? We make sure that it doesn't flood the house. We make sure that they can get to their house. But there's going to be water on your property. It's how fast we recover after it is one thing I like to make sure everybody recognizes. I can't stop the rain from falling, folks. None of you can expect that. But the fact of the matter is, people see, they're going to see water, but it's going to be down. And we've had, when we've had things that's been sitting, water been sitting for weeks, now we're hours, and 1, 2 hours. The fact of the matter is, still get to their home, and we have protected the home. The first thing we protect is your home, your finished floor. Okay, that's the first thing all these stormwater programs are supposed to do. So, and what we also do is we make sure there's a way for that water to get out. That's the outfall. But also, we've also imposed upon on all these stormwater improvements plans is a pumping system. So when we get back-to-back storms, and we have, and basically we have some significant flooding, we can pump the system down. And so we have generator backups for that, and we have stormwater pumps that are going to be there to back it up too. So I just want you to know what's happening. Oh, before I forget to not mention this, the town has been approached to put gas lines in the town, and they are planning those right now. So you might, that may be an interest to some of you. What that does for me on the stormwater management side, we are using temporary portable generators. I can now have a place where I can put a permanent generator, and then Jack or Bob can right here turn on those pumps. So now we have to go out there and turn them on. So anyways, that's the summary of the projects. Let's go to the next item. I'm not going to go through each one of these because you're bored to tears, but historical review, I'm going to cover that in a few minutes. Meetings, stakeholders, that's what we're talking about now. And relative to stormwater master plan, we will be meeting with not only you residents, you're welcome to call us at any time, property owners associations. What we're finding out, and most of you know this, a lot of people belong to property that they're in a community, whether it's High Point, whatever. There's not a property owner association maintaining any of this. So now we have to make a decision whether the town's going to do that. In some cases, there's POAs, property owner associations, that are not active, and so those are the ones we kind of need to look at and so forth. But there are property owner associations up in Castle Hill and so forth. We'll be talking to them. We'll be talking to regulators, the Water Management District, and they are highly active in this vulnerability stormwater program. Obviously, commissioners, and so those are things that will be happening. After that, we'll be mapping and we'll be doing recommendations and cost estimate. So if you got issues and we don't hear them from you today, by all means, we got time before we get to task 3, 4, 5. We'll talk about funding. We will be adjusting the regulations in town based on what we hear from everybody. And so if you've been complaining or concerned about construction going on around your property, the town has already been talking about it, but they'll be putting more improvements out there in regulations. So some of those may change a little bit. And vulnerability resiliency is what we're going to, this is why we're doing the 2 of these studies together. And then there'll be a draft stormwater master plan, and then obviously final, and then the state has asked us to put a 20-year stormwater needs analysis out there. So we're hoping that they will make money available for these improvements. So that's for the purpose of that. So that's the master plan. This is just a quick history focused on water quality treatment and flood protection. That's what our goal is here. Town codes were adopted in 1977. It was the first stormwater management regulations in the codes, okay? adopted the drainage element in 1989. If you're familiar with the comprehensive plan, that's what's the guidebook of what we use for all governments in Florida, and we have one for the town. And then I told you about the 1993 stormwater management plan that was last updated. From 2011 to present, we've been working on a basin management action plan. It's a program that reduces nutrients in the Inner Lagoon, the Sewalls estuary. Its abbreviation, you're going to find in this business there's a lot of acronyms. BMAP, okay? So if you hear the word BMAP, basically the town is not required to participate in the BMAP. However, we've been participating. We've been making stormwater improvements. And basically the idea is to reduce nutrients. And in this basin area here, it's nitrogen and it's phosphorus. So we've been doing our part. We're ahead of the plan. The plan was a 15-year program. In the first 2 years, we met all our goals and so forth. But the fact of the matter is we stay involved with that program. And it's really the same as the estuary BMAP, okay? And that's everything on the left side here, on the other side of the town, and coming down from Okeechobee and so forth, and all the communities that drain into that have to participate in that BMAP. The town is considered a small community. They don't have to participate. We have found it very successful in getting grants because we do participate. So the town has been doing their part since 2011 to present. It's still going on. Again, we're talking about the stormwater master plan today here, and then the master plan with a vulnerability assessment. So that's kind of a little general history of stormwater in town. Let's see. Let's go through next slide. Well, this kind of shows you what we did back in '93. So it kind of looks a little archaic, right? Didn't have the internet back then like we have today. So basically, these are a brochure, talked about stormwater management stuff that I already just told you about. You guys probably know this stuff, easily. You don't need to talk about this today, but I just want to let you know, back then in '93, we spent a year talking about this, and I always like to kid people. At that time, we had a lot of the old ladies. I don't want to criticize ladies or anything, but and they used to say, well, we only have public in town, which it really was. It was just public, but that's all they had. There wasn't as many people as there is today. So that basically that public comment kind of carries along for everything we've been doing forever. But stormwater improvements that we need to make more stormwater improvements. There's a lot of pipe in town. There's a lot of inlets. We do have a program to clean those out once a year. Those inlets, believe it or not, and sometimes some of the lines between inlets get filled up, and we have to go back and forth. Because we're a tree city, these lines get filled up with leaves and debris. If you ever see that, please move it up. You know we got one maintenance guy in town, right, Jeff? That goes around after the storm, just kind of takes things off the grades off the inlets. But it's hard for him to cover everything. So if you do see some, call it in at least, so Bob can get somebody. We have a program with another county contractor in town that he comes out and fixes stormwater improvement. Just want to let you know, as much as it may sound like we don't maintain things, we are doing a better job now, and we have it on a cycle of doing this once a year. Anyway, that's '93. Let's see, next slide. So this is the schedule of the stormwater plan, okay? And I'm not going to go through each one of these. Basically, we talked about the historical review and so forth in the kickoff meeting. So pretty much in general, which you're really going to see here, November, December, which is today to the end of the year, we want to basically want to know what are some of your inputs. So that way, in January and February, we can work on resolving the problems. March, we obviously will look at ways to address the concerns and regulations, because we want to make sure, even when we make the improvements, that somebody doesn't tear them apart by inadvertently by building something that we don't want built. And so there'll be regulations looked at in March. And then April, we'll have a master stormwater plan. That's generally what this slide says. You can look online if you want to get into more detail of these items. But that's pretty much the general process of stormwater review. All right, I talked enough. Any questions on just stormwater management that you want to talk about right now? Anybody got any questions on just stormwater?
How many STAs do we have on the peninsula? I know there's one by Ridgeview, or I don't know if that's by definition.
By stormwater treatment area, so look, we have retention areas,
Yeah.
and they may have some overgrown vegetation in them, but they're not technically a stormwater treatment area. The one we really have is the one we just built in the in South Sewalls Phase 1, which is pretty much on South Sewalls Point across from Margarita. Okay, that's probably the first stormwater treatment area. Now, so you know, and town maintains that as part of the requirements of stormwater management to get those, to use the funds that we did for that. The next one is going to be, as you mentioned, in Bridgeview. The one on the left side there, and we acquired a lot to the east called 78 South Sewalls Point. We were going to build one in the front of that lot too. So the two of those are back together. So that's probably the second stormwater treatment area, okay? And then we are looking at some of the other retention areas. And it's been talked about, in Sewalls Meadows, a retention area, for example. We could make that into a stormwater treatment area. One that's probably a pretty good one to change in the stormwater treatment area is the one in Indian City. As you know, that's wet all the time. Basically, we make it a stormwater treatment. Typically, a stormwater treatment area, for those that may not know, is about 2.5 feet of water sits in it, and we put plants in it, and those plants take the nutrients out of the water. That's what the goal is. Usually, we make a serpentine motion with the water that goes through this area. And again, ours are very small, and so, folks, this is what they're doing in the Everglades. We're doing it on a much smaller level, okay? But the point is, it's the same concept, okay? So we use stormwater treatment areas for that. So those are what we're some people say, well, they're looking like wetlands. Well, they are. We're technically creating a wetland, and we know we have to do a little better job on the plants, as well as those are the plants in the water. Then we also want to think about how we're going to handle the plants outside the water. So we're trying to look at different ways of approaching this. That one there, Phase 1 was our first one. It was a limited amount of space. We probably we used a certain size plant. It is finally growing into place. Another thing that we're finding is sometimes the side slopes have mulch. We found it better to use the rock in the smaller areas, which is what we did up Ocean Breeze. On the right side, you'll see one with rock. So we're probably doing some of that. Usually what happens in a treatment process, we call it a treatment train. So you have water coming down from the top of the hill. We'll put it through exfiltration, put it underground. Then we may put at the end of that pipe a baffle box, which basically takes the sediment out. And then we'll throw it into the stormwater treatment area, which will do a serpentine motion, and then we put it over a weir. It's typically the process we follow. That's called a treatment train of stormwater. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. And how are we doing with nutrient?
Yeah,
I'm guessing you would decide whether to turn a retention area into a STA based on nutrient.
That's correct. And so that one there, we did see benefit on the nutrient. Sometimes it depends on, some of them we get, 60%, and some of them we get 90% reduction, okay? And quite frankly, what makes it somewhat harder too, and that's why we actually went to this, we also proposed the sanitary sewer. Sometimes those nutrients are kind of giving us data that's kind of conflicting. So the fact of the matter is we have seen a reduction. Most of the money in the past, now it's not, the future money is not the same, the past money they made us do a study, so I can get you a study if you'd like to see that. But we did see a reduction in that one. Could be more, but the fact of the matter is we have a limited size. And there's the other thing that we run into is when we have hurricanes, all bets are off. Let's get the water out, and that's what we do. So I know you asked, you had your hand up first. So I didn't want to did you get your question?
No, it didn't answer. So there is a swale. So the river, the water currently runs. Is it
Yeah, on that was
runs,
right away.
yeah, it runs down Palmetto. There's a drain on the west side of South Sewalls Point Road.
Goes under the-
Collects it, goes under the road, goes into the swale that goes into the Indian River Lagoon. I was told when I called about it 8 or 9 years ago that that swale is controlled by the county, not by Sewalls Point, when I called the town manager at the time.
Okay, so first of all, we'll go to that in the process, but the fact of the matter is, anything from A1A south is town. The county doesn't maintain any of our stormwater facilities. On the north side, we share outfalls on the North Sewalls Point Road. we share our costs with the county. Some that go through our subdivisions go through that, we tend to take care of it. If the county just drains the road through it, but there's an outfall of Castle Hill, they are not, that's
This
one
is-
that they're supposed to fix. You're done.
This is South Sewalls Point Road.
Yeah. that
So
should
when
be-
I
that's
called the
top.
county, they came to look at it, and they said it was appropriately dug out. And that at that time, that excessive rain only came from, because we had, heavy rain, and that was not gonna occur normally, which I felt was wrong anyway. But why was I directed from Sewalls Point to the county for that particular swale?
I can't tell you that. And again, it was a mistake probably, but the fact that anything from here down, this
Correct.
pond here is the state's. But other than that, everything from here down is the towns. We take
So-
care of all
so-
that. And all those are being improved with this program.
Okay.
So that's why I want to look at the issues you had.
We can look at them out later together,
Yeah.
but that's why I
That's
was,
why that map over there would be best to talk about.
Yeah.
And we can recirculate and make sure we're there. So, a good question. I guess.
so it does not belong to the county, that was incorrect information.
Yeah, sometimes the town does come out and help us, because the town doesn't have all the resources, so they may have done it just because of courtesy to the town. But I don't know why the town told you that, but the fact of the matter is, over time, the town has done a better job of inventorying their facilities, okay? So now we have a map, it's not just one map, we have several maps, basically show you where all the facilities are, you can find them in one place, okay? And so I'm sure at that time, they weren't aware that they weren't conscious of, whoever you talked to wasn't conscious of where the town facilities were and not facilities were. So the point is, now we know it's ours, and we can kind of clarify that.
And the second part to that was, when we built our house 9 years ago, we were told we had to keep the water that comes onto our property, off of our house, whatever, and we had to keep it on our property. And we had to dig a large retention pond, which I have not seen anybody else do, so I'm kind of confused why all of a sudden now we're coming up with a plan that I thought was already in place, and we were told by the building manager at that time that's what we had to do.
So again, this program has been building over time, and some of it's been based on problems, like you would count, that other people have encountered. We do have a requirement that you're supposed to hold 3 inches of water on your property. It was 1 inch before, when you first came out, we went from 1 inch to 3 inches. And so, and it's not that it's retention, it's sometimes just placing berms around, but quite frankly, it's pretty insignificant of a retention requirement. I'm not saying, they may have asked you to do that, and I'm happy they did, because that's what they should be doing. But just so you know, we're gonna see a lot more of it, because the town cannot afford to put all the retention that's needed here, and to keep this sea level rise and everything. So more and more people are gonna see retention on the property, for their property.
Correct, but it brings me to the other, so we have the other half of our property becomes a retention area for the road and for everybody else. So that is a problem on the second half of our
That's why I should look at what you have.
So we'll look and we can discuss
Yeah,
that.
we can find. So,
So there's
like
two
I mentioned,
houses, they're divided, but one keeps more.
yeah, and it's kind of hard to go back to old work that's been done, because we can't afford it at the time. So, but the point is, what our goal is to get to is we're basically the public facilities, the roadways and so forth, we're supposed to keep that water separate and basically treat that water. Don't get me wrong, when it gets to a certain level of a rainfall, it's going to overflow with everything, all bets are on. But the fact of the matter is, what falls on your property is supposed to stay on your property to a point. And all we do as a town is we may offer a conveyance system so you can, or a discharge that you can get that water off when it gets a large rainfall event. So my point being is everybody's different, and that's why this study is going to encompass. Gary's got a job ahead of her to try to make sure she understands everybody's concerns, but everybody's got a different lot. It was built at a different time, some of them without responsibility. Remember I told you about the POA issue? Most subdivisions from the 1970s and 80s had stormwater retention areas, not conduits, but maybe retention areas and swales and so forth. They've all been filled. They got filled over time. And guess what? That water then got into the road system, and now we're trying to take it to the river. But guess what? They don't want it in the river. They want us to clean it before we put it to the river. So that's the program of stormwater management. And so we're going back to do retrofits. And we've been doing them since '93. We've been fortunate to get a lot of money from the water management district, but just so you know, that water, that only pays for these babble lots. And that, all that, because we don't have land. You know, we're land poor, and so now what I'm putting water into is the roadways and underground storage, and we're buying lots. So the lot we bought is $2.2 million. You know, that's a lot of money, and that's where you want retention as close to the outfall, and we can't keep affording that, so that's why we're going after grants. And don't get me wrong, that home will be sold, and we will put that back on the market, but we're trying to convince a lot of people, can we use your lot for retention? In your case, that wasn't the way it was approached to you. I'm just saying in some of the ones, it's the ones we're talking to now, we're asking, can we use your lot for retention? And obviously we've got to put an easement over it, and we have to maintain it as time. So those are the things that are coming up. I just want you to be aware of it. You did your part. I appreciate that. I just want you to know. And everybody's being asked now to retain on the property a little more. And again, now we have to provide the conveyance systems and discharge and all that, and do treatment and other things. So it's a big comprehensive program, folks. And if I haven't scared you yet, and the price tag is huge, and so we, you know, we're going after as much as we can on grant funds, but it's a lot of improvements we have to do in short order. I'm sorry, some of you guys in the back asked questions. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'd like to speak to the point that this lady brought up about her property. I built my house in '08. I have an area that's this deep. Or I have no really a flat backyard. Forget it. There's no flat backyard. And I inquired when the stormwater retention was an issue. And they were talking about it. I've noticed some of these new homes within the past 2 or 3 years. Where's the retention on their properties?
It's exactly right what you're saying.
I mean, it depends on, I don't know how it gets designated. There's a home, if you go all the way down North River Road, right at the corner, the house is like it takes up the whole property. There's no retention. I think that somewhere along the line, the town was very lax in trying to get some retention on individuals' property.
I don't disagree with the comment that you're making. And the town board has put in some new rules recently. And we've actually, the newest rules that just got approved in the last week, dealt with the fact that some of the construction, work during construction, has caused severe problem to stormwater. So they put in new rules for that just recently. You know, it's like everything else. There's a balance here, and I think the fact that we've known that we need to get this done, and that's why you have to do a master plan, because you have to kind of tell them what the problems are. Retention on lots, so that's why.
I mean, that would make more sense,
Right.
figuring all of the lots. If you added up all of the lots, and everybody had a 3 or 4 inch area that took so much water, it would totally, I would not say totally, but it would be considerable amount of less water going directly into the lagoon.
And you're right. So what we did is when we did one of the 3-inch program process. I mean, yeah, we could impose upon people over time, because basically you can only get the town can only ask them to make that change when they come in for a remodel on the property. Okay. And so the fact of the matter, it would take forever to get all the extra 2 inches of water. And so therefore, that's why the stormwater master plan is going to look at, well, do we wait forever for that? Or do we start making some improvements in master infrastructure now, which means more retention areas, more. So now we can do that, because we're trying to do them in 2,000-foot increments of South Sewalls Point. In North Sewalls Point, they want to do it all at once, but every one of those we're kind of looking at. So I'm not trying to tell you you're wrong in what you're saying, but we are trying to impact that. We are trying to fix that, and we're only to start to get the stormwater master plan done. Because it's going to be more, but I want everybody to understand, it's going to be more than just the town doing things, because we can't provide all the retention necessary here. There's not enough land from the town standpoint, and the price of land is just huge. And guess what? There's no vacant lots. So who wants to take, we don't want to take down some of these houses we do. And so the point is it's kind of a balance we're in here. But I understand your concern. The town has talked to us about, town commissioners have worked on new ordinances, and now we'll get a comprehensive plan where we kind of say, these are the new rules, folks. And I'm sure we're going to get a lot of pushback on it from people that have built homes and done the retention. And so it's not fair to them to go do more. At the same time, you know, it's like all stormwater programs. It's like,
No water leaves my property.
yeah, and that's
The way
that's-
it is, no water leaves my property that I can see, other than maybe the concrete swale in front.
Right,
Because I've intentionally, because I've got that low spot,
right.
I've directed some of the downwater spouts to go into there. I mean, people need to feel responsible. You know, people get stuff from Amazon, and we have stuff shipped in, and I've ridden around on the roads. If you don't put it in the recycling thing, and you don't smash your boxes, I mean, where's the self accountability that people have? If you live here, you should have some accountability, some responsibility.
Great comments. I'm not going to address it, but I just like.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Nobody
I know
wants to
what
be
you're
bothered with a little extra effort, you know?
With all the surveying you're doing, is there a way to get estimates on like how each property does in terms of their own retention? Is there any way to estimate that?
Well, there's LiDAR data that's basically, we're talking specific to, the survey that we're taking is to talk about fixing public infrastructure. So if it's in the public right of way, that's what we're getting surveyed on. The other stuff we can get for LiDAR data, but you know, that map up there shows you some elevation differences. And
Well, not the elevation, but how each property is. Because I've been in a meeting here where someone who lives not by the water said he could care less where the stormwater goes. You know, and I go, well, it's coming right down the street into everyone that's on this side.
Right.
And the end result is, it's the taxpayers who end up footing the bill because individuals are not taking care of their own. So it's spread the cost to us, and like you said, this is not a cheap fix.
And can we go after grant money to maybe do some home, so there is money for people to do home improvements for retention on their own, in their own yard? Can we come up with some master plan as part of this comprehensive program?
Good comment. Put it on the list. I mean, I'm not saying that there's not a lot of, multiple grants are dealing with public benefit. And so that, if it becomes a public benefit like you're talking about, that's what it is, then basically we can spend money on it. Because we're going after public dollar. Most of the time, you're not supposed to spend on private, but we tend to kind of skirt that line a little bit, because if you look at stormwater in phase one, we ended up going on the private properties and creating some swale areas at the same time, putting retention pipes in there so that we could discharge them when they got to a certain level. So, yeah, we can do a certain amount of that. I'm not saying, I'm not against what you're talking about, I'm just saying that's, we can look at that. So that's a good comment. Yes, sir.
Joe, in phase one, what is your experience now that it's been there for a little while in terms of any side effects of the water that is being discharged there?
Well, from a discharge standpoint, we're doing okay. We have some areas where people do not like the fact that water is sitting on the property, and it may be there an hour or two, okay? And I generally feel that we can do a little better job on that. And it may be that we talk with them about, this is where we're going to put the retention area on your property so that you have a place to store it. The intent is it's only supposed to be storing their water. And so there's a couple, some of the lots kind of are come together, and they basically are seeing the water in both properties. It's drying out pretty quick, but you know, people, they don't want water there at all, but I can't stop that. But I got to at least put it in a designated area. I think we probably could do a little better job talking to individuals. But okay, water's going to sit here. we want to put it in a certain area, can you use this area in your property? So that's probably, we'll get a little bit more involved with that. The outfalls, they're working fine as far as getting the water out. You know, a couple things, you know, in sea level rise, this is what happens. We basically have a pipe that goes out there, right? And that pipe, well, the water goes out of it and the water comes back in. That's what so we put these control structures in it. We're actually, because of the fact that some of those control structures are rubberized and they are sensitive to debris that goes in them, we'll probably put a couple of them in instead of one. So, you know, when one fails, because we check them out before major storm event has come, but you know as well as I do, those storm events crop up in the middle of the night. So we try to do a little better job on that.
But environmentally, where it's discharging, are you seeing any effects to the habitat?
I have to tell you, we haven't monitored that really closely as far as the mangroves and the type of vegetation or seagrass. Kind of look at that. Some of it, in phase one, just so you know, that one there is kind of up into a lagoon. That's kind of it's not the same as what we're going into phase 3, which is in the open river. So I'm sure we're going to have something, you know, we had to clear out some mangroves in some areas because they were choking our outfalls. But haven't really seen that too much. I'm not sure we're going to see seagrass in that one lagoon there, but it's kind of choked out. In an overall program, it would probably be good for the rest of that area is kind of controlled by a couple property owners that where the basically there's a sand shoal in there. If we could get the water go in and out better, that would be a better solution for that project there. But we monitored water quality again for over a year. We've seen benefits of that. I think we're going to see a lot more benefit once we get people on sewers. Because that guy going out there and checking the water quality, man, he's the aroma here, you know there's sewage in this water. It's there. And we've seen a lot of that, believe me. And we've taken some tests. Some people have criticized us that they were taking, you know, basically had a staff member go bring it to a water quality person. But, you know, well, that was, we didn't have the proper people taking the sample. So, but the fact of the matter is, we've taken more than one test, and it shows some significant amount of problem on this. So, but again, we're slowly getting this off. Okay. Yes.
What I'm wondering is, are you going to relook at the functionality of Lantana holding area and in Ridgeview, north and south in the park, and the drainage where it's supposed to capture stormwater before it gets down to South Sewalls Road? Because sometimes when you look at those holding tanks in the park there, they're next to empty.
Right. So Lantana, I agree with you on that one. I've been by it sometimes there's water, sometimes there's no water. It depends on how many back-to-back storms. So that one we could probably look at it more into that. The problem I have is now it's become a park, so it's like, okay, how much water I can put in there, but I'm not against doing what you're talking about. It's just I kind of, and like I said earlier, we want to capture that water before it gets down to the outfall. So it's to our advantage to do that. So yeah, I hadn't thought about making it to stormwater treatment area first of all, because that's where I get more nutrient load reduction. The fact that it has to be much deeper. And when we first built that, it kind of became a park for the kids. I'm not saying that's what it is
Right,
today.
and I understand that, but in Ridgeview, north and south, we have capture tanks, correct, and underwater drains or whatever, but if you really look at the roadway, after heavy rains, there's sediment, a lot of sediment that's on the edges of the properties, and leaves will cover over the drains, and I get that, so then the water can capture. But I'm wondering if, in the scheme of things, whether that is part of the relook at, redo it.
Yeah, well, certainly it is. First of all, you're right. We get a lot of erosion coming on the water, comes quickly down those two roads, and it gets on the side, it gets outside it's on the side of the road, and it creates gully, and basically, like you said, that erosion will end up into those, we probably should put, maybe I can look at a sand trap before it goes into retention, but really what we gotta do is stabilize that area. And so we do have to look at that. I actually went from, as you know, I went to where your property is, I went to the other road because I had an easier way to get pipe in there without tearing out vegetation. So kind of, everything you said makes sense, and we could do a little better job. I really wasn't doing a lot of, I've been concentrating on the improvements in South Sewalls Point Road area, so, but we can look at that. Because if we're going to go up there and tear some of the roads up, for some reason we could put some stormwater, better stormwater facilities there. Yeah, the problem I have is I end up tearing up the water mains and everything else when I do that, so. But,
You know, I was just trying to think of, you know, if it was functioning, then maybe the holding pond at the end of Ridgeview wouldn't fill up so quickly.
well, you're right, and I know in the past I tried to use the park area that's up in the middle, just so you know, that's going to have a portable generator in that location now.
Well, I'm not sure the neighbors know, but I know.
But the fact of the matter, and we put some exfiltration in between them, we got to find the storage. But now that system's going to be connected, so before it used to just overfill, and now it's going to be connected, so you should see some benefit from that. I'll look at that. I'll look at that. Good comment. I know I'm not getting to vulnerability, but if you guys want to, let's see, it's already 10. You want me to finish the presentation, then we can talk vulnerability, and then we'll do one-on-one. I just want to give everybody time to talk, or to ask specific questions if they have. So, this is the vulnerability slide of the presentation, and again, I don't expect you to read all this. Most of you know this. It's a Florida statute now, and basically, the state legislature recognize obviously there's adverse effects from flooding. Basically, it's not only happening more frequent, it's basically the duration of storm events are longer. We're seeing storm surges, severe weather systems. We had one this week, right? And sea level rise. And so basically, they want to allocate some funding to make sure they basically solve this problem consistently throughout the state. So this program for the town is also being done in the county and different cities throughout the community. But the idea is there's a couple things to recognize. It's a planning study, but the first thing is address the priorities for each community. So that's one of the things I need to find out from you, is what our priorities are. And then they want a coordinated approach from all the communities. So in other words, we're all going to be using the same data, so we're going to be using the same storm events. So we basically can look at everything consistently. And then the last one is a comprehensive plan. It's basically throughout the whole state. So it's not only happening here, but it's happening in Sewalls Point, Stewart, St. Martin County, and Fort St. Lucie. Everybody's going to be forced to deal with this. Obviously, we're a coastal community, so we're more affected by it. But the fact of the matter is, that's what the resiliency program is about. Next slide. So we've talked about resiliency planning. That's what we're doing. The benefit of this is grants. Obviously, we want vulnerability assessments. That's what we'll be doing for the next 6 months. We want to prepare for these threats, and we want pre-construction activities, and we want to know the critical assets you want us to consider. So through all that, and you can read the program if you want, or the statute. Next slide. So these are some items that are relative to the town. First of all, you know, in the past, we all want to be on the same survey data, okay? So North American Vertical has NAVD, that's what we use now consistently. In the past, a lot of the work, I caution anybody that wants to go compare and look at surveys or work that's been done on the house, but that was probably an NGVD. That's 1.5 feet higher than the elevation we're using now. So don't be confused by the data. We're going to be using NAVD. We are going to be using 2017 NOAA intermediate low and intermediate high sea level rise projections. I'm going to show you a chart that shows that what I'm talking about there. And again, the 2 planning horizons is 2040, the year 2040, and 2070. I know this for most of you may be a little, okay, great stuff, but I'm not sure what you mean, so I'll show you the picture. Go ahead, next slide. So the plan task for this study is basically outreach meetings. Again, this is a kickoff. The next one will be more informative to what is vulnerability and so forth. Again, the next thing is to acquire background data. The sea level rise prediction is what the first thing. We'll get that out of NOAA, or out of DEP. They're working on that for us. And then Thomasville's critical assets. I mentioned this earlier. This is what we're here today to make sure we account for all of them. Town hall, police station, evacuation, marinas, shorelines, seawalls, tree canopies, historical features. Those are things that just off the top of my head we came up with, and certainly there's roads and so forth. Peripheral critical assets. These are the ones that I believe are not in town, but basically our people will utilize. Fire stations, boat ramps, water, sewer, electric, gas, phone, internet. Obviously, you want to make sure that we have these services available in the next 100 years. County DOT roads, disaster debris management sites, hospitals. So those are peripheral critical assets. I just want you to know they will be considered. They're already in the city of Stewart's study, and Martin County has it in theirs also. We're doing exposure analysis, like what is our exposure, how sensitive are they, which ones do we have to fix sooner. The vulnerability assessment report will be done, and then an adaptation plan. Basically, we'll basically talk about when we're going to make the improvements and so forth. That's the task. What we need today is, again, input on critical assets, any property impacts from sea level rise and flooding, President's preferred method of providing input. That's just how we communicate with you. We have on the back side of this handout, it tells you, the front side, it tells you the email address to use. Bob will be putting some stuff on his website, and that's one way, but there's going to be 3 more meetings, so by all means, send us an email. In this case, Craig will be following you up, and if you get any questions on the vulnerability stuff, they'll call you up, and we'll keep record of everything and the comments we get from everybody. First public meeting will be in December. This is November, December. We'll be talking the task 1 and 2. Task 3 and 4 will be held in January, and task 5 and 6 will be February. So those are the items that will be done. And so let's go to the next slide. This is just a repeat of stuff, the things that we're looking at in critical assets, flood compliance and flood protection and different storm events. Just a repeat of what you've seen already. Next slide. So this study was done, this is a graph from 2017 in Miami Beach, okay? So if you look at these projections, this is what they project the sea level rise to be basically. And when I told you about NOAA intermediate high and intermediate low, these are the 2 lines that we are technically supposed to be studying. Now the graph that we'll be using will be a little different than this because they've been updating it. And this is again 2017. We'll be looking at some 2022, 23. So it's different. It's different from this one. And this is from Miami Beach. We'll obviously be doing one for closer to our community. Most everything we found tends to lead us to Key West, where they keep the best accurate record on sea level rise. So that is, although we're not Key West, basically that's the station we'll be using. But the fact that DEP is going to give it that. But I just want to let you note that there's a range of high and low levels of sea level rise that we'll be looking at, not just one level. But as you can see, this one here showed us, if this was accurate, this would be showing rising 5 feet versus rising 1 foot, 1 to 5 feet. Whether you believe that or not, I'm not going to try to ask everybody in this room because everybody has a different opinion about it. But the fact that's what we'll be studying in that's what we look at in our study. Next slide. Everything is based on context, basically the steering committees. What that committees will be technically staff, town staff, working with us on that. Basically, areas, and then with vulnerability assessments, exposure, sensitivity things, and then basically come up with strategies on how to fix it, and then how you implement the strategy. So 1 through 4 basically is a program that we'll be working on there. Next slide. I mean, I think most of you know, we've seen sea level rise, and I don't put these out here to scare you, but This is flooding that we've had in town. Nobody's surprised by that, you've seen it. And these are just other areas, outfalls and so forth, and different stormwater improvements we've made. But basically, this is a map of the 2100. This isn't 2040 or 2030, this is 2100. This is how much impact we could have for sea level rise. In the study, in the information that was provided, I think that was done in 2017, probably. But essentially, that addressed, we did a map that showed sea level rise and king tides, and it kind of inundated quite a bit of time. So, point, that's why we're doing the project. I just want you to know that we could see some significant changes over time. So that's what that slide's about. Next slide. Schedule. I've already went through this with you technically. Basically, background December, sensitivity January, final assessment in February. And this one does have a shorter fuse. It's basically in April, we're supposed to have the vulnerability assessment done in all communities in the state. So, and everyone has a penalty if we don't need it. So, that one got to get done for vulnerability. Meetings are going to be in 8 months. We'll make sure it gets out there on the website, and at the same time, we'll be sending an email blast for that, and then you can see the information on how to contact us. Anyways, question on that item, vulnerability? Any general questions about that?
Are those slides going to be on the website?
Yes. It's already on the right. After today's, this whole meeting is on. Yeah. Dave.
I think the best way to describe sea level rise, I'm sure everybody here is on Bathtub Beach, and you see a yellow house over there. I moved here originally back in 1981 in South Florida. I moved to Martin County in 99. My in-laws have been here. Back in 93, we used to take our ourselves over here, and later on my kids were playing Bathtub Beach. And I used to see that yellow house, and you would see originally, there was a big beach in front of it, and just a little spot in there, and that was it. No matter how bad the weather got, the water went nowhere near that yellow house. Fast forward from 93 up until maybe 12 years ago, I started seeing everything wash out. About 5 years ago, the entire foundation under the yellow house washed out. The foundation collapsed inside. The cars were actually underneath what was currently the West Foundation. So you look down, you see Mercedes down there and everything else. It just went down. And then now the house next door to it, the same thing's happening. So it's proof that the sea level rise has taken place. The flooding here has definitely gotten worse. We've seen about a year ago, we had the ocean literally coming up the roads right here at Sewalls Point. And that's salt water. Every time you see that flood, that's salt water. That's just riding the bottom of your cars. It's not good for the foundations that we have. It's going to kill your grass. And the other major problem we have is coming from high up. So in other words, we've got two issues. One is the water coming from the east, then you've got water coming down from the west. You see the big, beautiful lawns on the west over there, on the river, Lucy riverfront homes. What's happening now is all those pesticides and everything, they're washing into your property, and they're making their way down. The question is capturing water further west, and there's what I consider nuisance properties that have almost all concrete on those properties. So I think our projects that we're looking at, one is probably building, I guess, if I talk to our town engineer, is to build maybe seawalls. When I lived in Fort Lauderdale, a lot of those homes that now have seawalls, and they keep making them higher and higher because the seawater keeps coming onto those areas in those homes. And it definitely hasn't gotten better. It's gotten worse. So I think the best thing, what our town engineer is trying to tell us is to prepare, and we got to capture from the west, and we got to prevent it coming from the east. So it's two ways. And retention water is a lot. I know the projects where I live in Margarita, one of the people that's actually benefited. We've seen where it used to be floodwaters on the corner of Margarita and Sewalls Point Road. It's now high and dry. We've seen very minimal water on the road, no zero flooding, except for that one episode where we had the king side with the hurricane. Other than that, it's been nothing, and I really feel it's going to take us in the right direction.
So one of the things Dave brings up, just to kind of, so even though we don't have levees and flood walls, technically what they actually did in Broward County is when people replace their seawalls, which most of them maybe have stabilization here, when they replace their seawalls, they're making them put it at elevation 5. They're making, I mean, that's when we get the permit. Now, we may not go to that, but the fact of the matter is, so you get an understanding, pretty much our roads, we're bringing everything up to elevation 3 NADD. So that's so that we can at least be at the sea level rise location. The fact of the matter is, and they're putting down there, they're putting their seawall 5 to give you an idea. So obviously, that ultimately will be filling this up. One of the things we have a problem with is, you know, these houses are, you know, this is an extreme look at this. We right now control the level of the road based on house elevations. When we have a house that is, you know, pretty much we've been able to keep most of our house, we've been able to keep the road at 3 because most of our lowest houses are at 4.5. That's the slab. Now that's not the garage level, I'll be honest with you. Some of the garages are below that. But the idea is I want the house to slope to the road and when I raise the road. So that's what we're doing now. But we're marginal right now. So in other words, when in the next 20 years, those houses are going to have to be raised. Because if the sea level rise happens, like I'm predicting, obviously I can't raise that road anymore until I get that house raised up. So that's kind of what we're talking about. The other thing Dave was pointing out is this water up here, we want to capture it before it gets down here. So that's what this here represents. Storage underground. If we can get some land, that'd be fine, but I don't know. Really at this point, pretty much we'll look at the park area, we'll look at how the water gets down here, so there's not erosion, providing sediment down here. Yeah, so there's quite a few things that we do look at. I want you to think we're just kind of guessing at this. Just, you know, we've been working here for quite a while. And again, I just want to make sure everybody realizes we're talking about this stuff for both North and South Sewalls Point, and most of the stuff in North Sewalls Point is controlled by the county's outfalls and the county's road. And so, you know, that needs to be addressed also, but unfortunately we can't do it ourselves. That needs to be done with help of the county. Yes.
When, in the projection plan, you know, it's 5 years out, 10 years out, I understood there's replacing seawalls. And so are you talking about seawalls that are, town property or, you know, like out on, road bridges? And those seawalls, or are we talking about a projection of a cost to the town for personal property seawalls?
Wasn't planning on the town taking on personal property seawalls. I was just pointing out that so to answer your question, yes, we have some seawalls next to our bridges. Those will address. And obviously, as I stated earlier, in the stormwater master plan, we are going to be talking about adjusting codes, which are building codes on private property. So we are going to encourage them to follow these rules, the things that we are going to impose upon ourselves, because we know they're going to impact everybody's property. And I say encourage, it'll be part of the rule. How we impose that rule on people, I think that's going to be a building permit of some sort. And so I can't just go tell somebody they're living in a house and they're not doing anything because they got to go do these improvements. But yes, that's what's going to happen. Their houses, sometimes when they get to the point they're going to flood more than the rest of us. But we obviously don't want that to happen. We want to maintain our property values. We want to make sure the community is safe. We want to make sure we address all this. And most people so far have been compliant with things. So I don't think we're going to go into the problem with them. I just don't want to come down. I don't think the commission wants to be heavy-handed with this, but we're doing our part to try to make sure we take in this water that's coming from the private property. But at first, they're going to see water on the property, then we're going to take it in, because we have to retain water. That's not what we got to do. Yes.
So that, you know, our ordinances have to align with this mitigation, and and encourage and even mandate, you know, that we don't have these hardscapes, that water should be able to permeate through when we're building. When there's new, I mean, there's not much new construction other than a lot of renovations. But we saw what's happening on North River Road. Not enforcing or, you know, there's just, we're supposed to enforce water staying on our own property, and that's not happening. And we really need to enforce those ordinances or create new ordinances that put some teeth in this. You know, living on Riverview, and I've lived in the town since 1994, and, you know, while we should have done this 20 years ago, I applaud the commission and the leadership, the town manager, to be looking at this now, because it's only going to get more expensive.
That's what we found. It's just, like I said, we just, since COVID, we saw it got expensive. And we've done, like I said, we did the first 93 study, had the work in South Sewalls phase 1 area planned at that time. And I think at that time we estimated $300,000. And by the time we got done with it, we were probably in excess of $6 to $7 million. So it ain't going down in price, that's for sure. And at that time, we even had land to work with. Now, when we got done with it, we didn't have any land, we had to buy a little bit. But, and again, we probably could buy a lot more land if we, you know, and solve some of the problems, but it's just too expensive now. To your point is well taken. We gotta, but, and that's why I try to stress this. You know, first of all, it's going to affect everybody. It's not just public problems. It's going to affect everybody's life. That's the only way we're going to get this to work. And I don't doubt that people in schools are going to come, you know, rise to the occasion and accept a lot of this. They're not going to want us to throw it down their throats. They're not going to want a lot of, you know, raising taxes. I know that, but that means we got to go get grant funds. And we've had people actually go to some of the grant agencies and try to tell them that this is not acceptable by the town residents. And, you know, so we've got people working against us at the time. And that's the disheartening part about it. It takes a lot of work to get these grants. And sometimes we get a portion of them, a little portion, so then we got to adjust everything. And so I'm just pointing out, these are things that, you know, if I had a plan, I can show it to the state legislators. Here it is, it's in the plan. This is what the majority of the people want. But it takes all the people in the room to tell us that, instead of just a couple. So that's all I'm telling them.
Well, for all of us that want to live in Sewalls Point, we have to look at this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're not going to have town.
Well, you're going to have a town that's going to have a lot of nuisance.
Or you get into the town from River Road.
Yeah. We may have to get
It's-
that put in there.
I question the effectiveness at this point. You know, the horse is out of the barn, closing the door now, because there's very limited, other than renovations, that's going to happen now. So, like someone else has said, what we said is, we put in stuff.
9 years ago, we were
We've
aggressive.
seen so many properties being put in, rebuilt, houses being, and there's, in fact, they've raised, I've seen the level raised, some of it because of septic tanks, but there's less storage. We skimmed down, the house that was on our property, we actually took like 2 feet down, we built an elevated house. But, so we lowered our property level. But we see other people doing the exact opposite. Now that there's very limited new building going on, new construction is almost non-existent. What sort of teeth are these new?
We're seeing more and more people, but I think
We've got to lower the threshold, like, you know, you want to put in a new bathroom, you've got to do some work on the outside to control your discharge. You know, it can't be, you know, until you knock down your house, you know, you're free to do whatever you want on your.
Yeah, that's the problem, is because I think it's 50%, Jack was saying. It's 50%.
Well, it's major renovation, so
Yeah,
that's what that looks.
That's got no teeth.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to get any progress on. And I mean, literally, because we live right next to where we see water coming up, and I've watched the water coming down the road, and you can see the water emerging, and then it pushes up from there.
Right.
And of course, it pushes up into my garage, of course, so personal than against this, but this is something that should have been corrected before, that we shouldn't allow people to, so much drainage and occur off the property.
I think a lot of,
We can't do anything about this.
I think a lot of that is, nobody was really, and I'm not going to say nobody, but a lot of residents weren't really concerned with the future because, there's still some people who don't believe in sea level rise. I mean, but we see it every day when we have king high tides. So that it's changing, but you got to realize that, 5 years ago, there were other pressures on the commission, and a lot of that was, every time we pass a regulation, it restricts your use of your property, it has an effect. So we have to have a balance when we look at things as a government. We can't be too heavy-handed and say, okay, we're going to do all of these changes right away. We have to kind of work into it, and that's why part of this study is really letting everybody know where we're at and getting the feedback from you along the way, not just you, but the whole community. And that's why we're really trying to reach out, and when we do these public meetings, please, hopefully you'll be able to come back, because we really want to make sure we're doing the acceptable level. We know what we have to do in the future, and like I said at the very beginning, this is all about the survival of this community. And I don't want to be dramatic, but when you look at the 2100 chart that Joe had up, and I've seen it even when this study came out. In fact, the whole spaceport area up in Brevard County is underwater in 2100. So, and they're going about taking measures on that they can do to, be resilient and to still be there. And again, it's not for us, and for, some of us will be here and some of us won't, but it's for this community. And if we truly care about this community, that's what we have to do to make sure that it exists in the future. And so all the things that you said, you're right. We probably should have done things differently 5 or 10 years ago, but the climate, not political climate, but just the climate of the residents is what dictates what we can do and how quickly we can get to where we want to be. And so that's where we need your help. We need your buy-in, we need your support. And when your neighbors start talking to you about something, you can say, well, hey, I was at the meeting and I've seen where we're at, and maybe the town wasn't doing things that should have been done back then, but there was a reason for it. It's not, that they were sitting on their hands, but, they have to do what the residents want to do to some extent. Now there's laws and everything else, and, sometimes we do have to make some changes, like we did with the water retention issue. When I got here, we did have to make some changes, and we'll be making further changes as we go down the road, but it does take time. Even the seawall issue, when you look at that, we just can't tell everybody you have to put seawalls up and you have to be 3 feet above, the water level. We have to enact an ordinance, and then as redevelopment occurs, you have to come into compliance with the standards. And so that's why it's important that we do now what we need to do, so in 2040, 2050, we can still, and if it's not us, at least our children and our friends and family members that have kids and grandkids, they can all still enjoy this community. Sorry.
I definitely think there are ways to address that. So if you really want the residents to put seawalls up, maybe you could, somehow, if you do it within this period of time, waive the permit, really encourage residents to do, make concessions if we really want to be aggressive.
Yeah, that's a good point, and it's quite honestly the same thing we're doing on septic to sewer. We're trying to find grants that can incentivize people to hook up. So if we're putting in the lines in the road, and the resident has to go to the county to get to sign up. So if I can drop the rate by $1,000 or $2,000, which could be somewhere between $8,000 and $12,000, I can drop that down by giving them an incentive. Maybe they'll go do it sooner. And got all sorts of fabrics and materials that you can use. Done properly, they work, okay, and so forth. But the fact of it, sometimes they don't work, and riprap is one way of just putting it in and then adding to it. And it's a lot easier than tearing out a structure that didn't work. So I'm kind of more, it's the type of riprap we put in too. You know, that's one of the other issues we have. We're basically putting riprap in a smaller boulder, for example, and yet we've got this huge amount of erosion coming from boat traffic or whatever from the river, so you gotta put the right type of material on. And then, again, it costs people money to put some of these more, stringent requirements in. We're trying to put a balance there, is what but the fact that we've got to do the right thing, so. I appreciate you guys listening to all this. You know, some of the stuff you guys said, I really like those testimonies. I think Bob needs to put it on his website, so, because we don't have everybody that want to do the same thing, and I don't think we want everybody to do the same thing. We just want people to do the right thing, and if there's something we need to do to encourage them, I think we should get people to change some of their attitudes and ideas of what to work. So, we try to keep, you know, believe it or not, I've been an engineer since '88. You can blame me for everything, to be honest with you, but the fact of the matter is, you know, I think the town has tried to keep the cost of living at a reasonable rate. You know, it's not like they're usually spending a lot of money. We are now, so just want you to know, it has changed. And it started 2 years ago. It has changed. We are going to see, you guys are going to be spending a lot more money. And I need your help to go get that money. Because quite frankly, otherwise your taxes are going to go up. They have to. There's just too many improvements that everybody wants. They want drainage, they want stabilization, they want trees. Everybody wants everything. It costs a lot more money now. Just like in your own personal homes. Inflation's killing us all. But it's killing the town too, so pay attention. It's gonna, and I mean, everything you guys come in here and talk about, we're gonna record and we're gonna majority rules, right? So you guys, whatever you guys want, we'll do.
And I just heard about, you know, this special session that the legislature reviewed insurance, and it really did make a huge impact on homeowners. So, yeah, this is the state is flush with cash because of tourism, and we have to strike while the iron is hot.
And that's not a big deal. It's our grant person told us, you need to go grab this money now, because you never know where it's going to be here. So that's what we did. We've been going back there.
So can you take the next few minutes to go into?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
talk
that's
about-
right. I'm sorry. Could I do that? Does anybody want to do one-on-one? I'll do that now.